This podcast is brought to you by the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania.
This Week in Small Business.
And great to have back with us Gene Marks, owner and operator of small business consultancy, the Marks Group. Hi, Gene. How are you?
Dan, happy to be on. Good to speak with you.
Yeah, good to talk to you as well. Lots to discuss here around small business. And let's start with some of the issues that are out there, including supply chain, labor issues. You did a piece on the Hill recently talking about the impact of those issues, specifically involving the Republican Party.
Yeah, listen, I mean, if you're, obviously you listen to your show, Dan, you guys have been talking a lot about, labor and supply chain issues that's been affecting businesses around the country. Very hard hit are the small businesses in this country. Finding labor is a real problem in the summer of 2021. And again, I know because I listen to your show, we've gone through many of the reasons why that's the case. And of course, getting supplies is also a big issue. There's still a lot of ships stacked up off the coasts, and there's still a lot of chip shortages and a whole bunch of different things. So the piece I wrote in the Hill, though, was from a small business owner's perspective, and it was a political perspective. Right now, the Republican Party are taking advantage of this. They're blaming a lot of the Democrats and President Biden's policies for causing a lot of this disruption, and that can certainly be debated. But I do believe that Republicans do need to watch out. Because, what I'm seeing, the economists that I speak to, and even many of the business owners I speak to, Dan, they know that these issues right now are temporary. When you look at labor, as we head into the fall, those unemployment benefits are going to be running out in September. People will be getting back to school, and I think a lot of workers will be a lot more comfortable going back into a public setting. And I think a lot of the labor issues that a lot of us are seeing right now are going to start working themselves out. We'll always have an issue getting skilled labor, but they won't be as prevalent as they are right at this moment. And the same thing with supply chain, Dan. I think a lot of those issues are going to be working themselves out throughout the end of the year. As you can't just turn off an entire economy for a year, and then flip a switch and it comes right back. And all of that, I expect to get resolved by year end and heading into perfect timing for the midterm elections. And I do think a lot of voters have short memories, and we'll be enjoying a continuing growing economy. And I think that's a challenge for Republicans. A year from November, trying to get people to remember the problems that we are having right now. And I think the Republicans, need to be prepared with a strategy, to get voters to support them. Because blaming the things of the Democrats right now I don't think will be a similar story a year from now.
You bring up a couple of interesting focal points in that piece. One being what we're seeing going on at some of the ports, specifically out in L.A., where there is obviously a backlog of ships trying to get in. And, a lot of people are looking at that as a port issue and the ships themselves. But a lot of people also have to remember that we've had a lot of trucking issues as well, and that has been played into the delays that we've seen as well.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Dan. I mean, it's there's trucking issues and logistic issues, and then there's also people issues. I mean, the ports, even when ships come in, the people that are running the ports right now are having a real hard time getting the stuff off of the ships because they're like every other business. Ports are businesses. They're having a hard time finding labor to do that. So that's also really contributing to the problem. But what's happening now, and what I wrote about in the Hill, is that the different logistics services that are tracking what's going on in the reports are showing a couple things. One is that the average wait time for ships are really coming down. I mean, it was it was close to 2 weeks and even more during the height of the pandemic, and now it's down to a number of days to get a berth in some of these ports on the West Coast. The East Coast has actually been doing pretty well as well. So they're catching up. And you know what, Dan? They're sending ships back to Asia, to China, empty. Because it's more profitable for the carriers not to take stuff back because the U.S. companies are so far behind in making stuff. They're just sailing back to Asia and loading up the ships and bringing them back to the U.S. And so we're seeing a lot of that, which is really an unusual activity. But again, that means it's good news for us because the ships are getting out, getting back, and bringing back more supplies.
The other part to it is right now the manufacturing sector, which, it's interesting to see the levels of manufacturing we're starting to see. I mean, there's been a lot of negativity about what manufacturing could be here in the U.S., and that in part goes to, that reliance on getting products from overseas. But the numbers are getting better for manufacturing, and I think there has to be some optimism at this point as to where we're going. Obviously, as you can, get some of the labor issues squared away, we could have some fairly decent manufacturing going on here in the next few years.
Well, the Institute of Supply Management, which is an association of purchasing managers around the country, they publish a metric every month that's really looked hard by a lot of economists. It's a manufacturing index and a service index, and you're absolutely right. I mean, manufacturing purchase orders by manufacturers across the country, Dan, are at the highest level that they were since the early 1980s. And purchase orders, by the way, for people in service businesses are at the highest level ever, according to this study. And again, they've been doing this for decades, and it comes out every month. So purchase orders there's a lot of demand out there, which is, you're absolutely right. It's great news. But what's also interesting is the National Federation of Independent Businesses came out with their Small Business Optimism Index just this week, and it dipped a little bit. And part of the reason is frustrations. There is demand out there, but a lot of businesses are really worrying that they just can't supply this demand. And because of that, they're having to increase lead times and deal with frustrated customers who are trying to get their products. So, like I said earlier, Dan, and we're calming down our clients. We're telling them, listen, it is a tough time right now. The fall will continue to be a challenge, but both from a labor and a supply chain issue, those problems are going to be working themselves out by the end of the year. So we just got to deal with it right now.
You brought up an interesting story out of the city of San Francisco, and boy, I really feel for the gentleman that owns this ice cream shop out here. About trying to get a business started. And this happens, I guess, in some cities. I'm not sure, how prevalent it is across the country, but I'm guessing it's more so than not about trying to get a business started and sometimes what you have to go through to try and do that.
Okay, so you're going to get me angry here, Dan, because this article really fired me up. I wrote about it in The Guardian. And it was based on information from the San Francisco Chronicle as well. Jason Yu, he's a 30-year-old guy, wanted to open up an ice cream shop in San Francisco's Mission District. And, the world for a small business owner is a lot different than the world that's operated by bureaucrats, people that work for the government, people that just are used to getting a paycheck and their insurance payments. Time is everything. But this poor guy, he started his project here back in 2018. He leased space, which is not cheap in San Francisco, hired an architect, started building things up, and then here it came. He started getting buildings and inspections. He had to get permits. And then there's a rule in his neighborhood that he's got to notify the other businesses and people in the neighborhood that he's opening up an ice cream shop. And sure enough, a couple of people complained who, big surprise, turned out to be competing ice cream shop owners. And that stuck the project back even further. And then he had to appeal in front of a committee to explain his case. And then after he did that, he started getting approvals. But by that time, he was $200,000 in the hole. I mean, this was through 2021. And remember, he started this in 2018. And ultimately, he just gave up, packed up shop, and he never opened up the ice cream shop. So it's just, it's just another story of bureaucracy, people trying to do the right thing in government, but then it gets out of control, and it stops, entrepreneurs and startups from building their businesses. And here's a guy couldn't even open up an ice cream shop in the area because he just got too tied up in the red tape.
And this becomes very important now when you think about where we are with the numbers of small businesses that had to shut their doors because of the pandemic. We need to be in more of a mode of looking to do things to try and help businesses open up and not constrict them.
Yeah, I mean, you would think that the climate would be so open and accepting of small businesses and startups, considering all of the struggles that businesses have had last year, particularly retailers and restaurants. And yet, here we are with, a great example. And San Francisco itself is, they are suffering a lot of demographic changes, people moving out because rents and property costs are just way too high. So here's a guy looking to invest in the neighborhood and open up an ice cream shop. And, you want people like that to increase that commerce. And, when you stop them from doing that, it hurts. It has such a big impact on a local community. And I hope that San Francisco, they are talking about making some changes, and I hope that they take those changes to heart because they're really important to be done.
So where are we right now in Capitol Hill with the Secure Act 2?
So I'm glad you brought that up because, I wrote about this recently, the Secure Act, and I don't want to insult people's intelligence, but listen, it was a big bill that passed at the end of 2019, and it affects our retirement plans. And right now, and then it got overshadowed by COVID when when that happened in 2020. But if you're running a small business, the Secure Act really gives you incentives to start a 401k plan, a retirement plan for your employees. If you don't have one and you've got less than 100 employees, the government will literally pay you $5,000 through tax credits to start one up. So they're basically saying, you want to start up a retirement plan, we'll give you the money to do it. And it doesn't even cost anywhere near that amount. Secondly, if you have a 401k plan, if you just make it automatic enrollment, the government will give you tax credits, like $500 a year for 3 years, just for making your employees be automatically enrolled in your existing plan. They can always unenroll if they want to. These are huge incentives because we have this retirement crisis. And so that happened in 2020. A lot of business owners weren't aware of it. So if you're listening to this now, you're aware. There's a new version of the Secure Act that's coming out that's right now working its way through the Senate that is going to provide even more tax incentives, tax credits for people that contribute to 401k plans. I mean, they already get a deduction. They would get credits as well, and also some help for employers that are helping their employees pay down student loans. And one final thing I just want to mention, Dan, if you're a small business owner with a 401k plan, you can save money on your 401k plan by pooling it with other employers. And the best way to do that is to go to, if you have a payroll service, go to your payroll service. Many of them are offering these services where you can pool your 401k plan, which means that all the employees get put into the same group, and then you can share the administrative costs together, which means you'll get your costs reduced. So talk to your payroll service provider about pooling your 401k plan. The Secure Act now allows you to do that.
Sounds similar to what we heard maybe trying to play out with companies coming together on healthcare plans to try and manage them a little bit better and maybe save some money there.
So it's funny you say that. So you're right. It's very, very similar to the association health plans that President Trump had put forth through an executive order. But the difference here is that the Secure Act is law. So it's legislation. It ain't going to go away unless it's repealed, and there's no chance it's going to be repealed because it's got bipartisan support. So go and talk to your payroll service provider about pooling your 401k costs.
Another piece that you did recently was about the family leave proposal for the Biden administration and the impact it could be for small business. Tell us your thoughts. So, people have this debate about health care itself, like national health. And Dan, I just want to say, I am a fiscally conservative guy, but as a business owner, I would love there to be national health in this country, like there is in Canada and the UK. I know that there are some drawbacks to it. I realize that. But, boy, it's such a burden on small businesses. Well, we're not going to have that anytime soon. But President Biden has proposed as part of the American Rescue Plan, paid family leave. And this paid family leave would be this. If you're running a business, somebody has to take time off to take care of a family member or themselves. They're allowed under the Family and Medical Leave Act to take 12 weeks of unpaid leave from your company. You're required, if you've got more than 50 employees, to give it to them. Well, what President Biden is proposing is that it would no longer be unpaid leave. The government would pay up to $4,000 a month for that employee to take time off.
Now, I know there are tax issues, and like, what's this going to cost? And I get that. But as a business owner, listen, if my employee has to leave, work for 12 weeks for a family, emergency, taking unpaid leave is tough. So there's a good chance I'm going to lose that employee, or I have to step up and maybe continue to pay that person just because I'm a good guy, and I also don't want to lose that person. I want to do the right thing. But with this plan that he's proposing, the government would pay them for up to $4,000 a month, which means that the playing field is leveled among small and big businesses, because now it reduces our risk of losing those employees and keeping them around. So I have to admit, it's definitely a proposal that, again, putting aside deficits, the costs, potential future taxes, I get all of that. Just the proposal itself to just pay my employees if they need to take time off for an emergency, I'm like, wow, that's great, man. Okay, fine, pay them. As long as I don't have to do that, that's a big help to me.
Gene, great to have you with us. Thanks very much for your time today and this week, and we will catch up with you soon. Thank you, sir.
Talk to you soon, Dan. Thank you so much.
You got it. Gene Marks, owner and operator of the Marks Group.
To keep engaged with Wharton Business Daily and other Wharton School shows, visit businessradio.wharton.upenn.edu.